This is the Aftermarket Radio Network. Hey, do you ever think back a few years ago and kind of wish you did something differently? Well, maybe those few things that seemed impossible to implement wasn't as difficult as you thought. From the Aftermarket Radio Network, hi, Carm Capriato here, and I'm with Randy O'Connor, Executive Director of Modern Tire Dealer Training and Educator Network. Randy gives an insightful analogy to processes and procedures being the lifeblood of your business. They connect everything together. Put the work in and reap the rewards. You're going to love this episode. Hey, thanks to our partner, Napa. How does Napa support your auto care center through national marketing? Well, Napa will build upon the already successful Know-How for All campaign and promote auto care offerings and services to our do-it-for-me customers with support through sales driver promotions, optimized targeted media in local markets, and in proven channels. It also gives your repair facility an online presence on Napa Online, generating millions of views per month. Now, if you're interested in partnering with Napa Auto Care and capitalizing on the Napa Know-How for All national marketing campaign, contact your servicing Napa Auto Parts store. Hey, welcome everyone. Remarkable Results Radio, Carm Capriato. Honored to have Randy O'Connor. Hello, Randy.
Carm, good afternoon. Honored to be here.
Hey, so happy to have you here. Executive Director of Modern Tire Dealer Training and Educator Network. Well, that's a long title there.
It's a mouthful, my friend. There's a lot that goes into it, though. Got to have a mouthful to be able to put a lot into it, right?
Formerly DSP20 Group and now Modern Tire Dealer Training and Educator Network. Does that mean that everybody who's a member of your network and these particular 20 groups are all tire people?
Not all of them. We do have a couple unique members. So part of our offering at MTD10 obviously is the 20 group portion, but then we also do a lot of consulting and business operational financial consulting at the same time. So we do have some pretty unique members. We've got some that are in emergency services, those folks that are taking care of all the ambulances and all the fire trucks that are out there. We've got a real unique member that's in the tractor pull tire world. And so they manufacture and wholesale one of the leading tractor pull tires, rear drive tractor pull tires in the country. So we've got a wide array of members, but most of them, yes, are members that have been with us for numerous years, 10, 12 years that were basically very tire heavy, and eventually through way of benchmarks and the rest have started to get a better mix of their business. And so as a result of all the networking and everything that happens with our groups, we've expanded, and we've got some pretty cool, unique folks that are with us.
A question about the mechanical guys that are into tires, and some of them not in it all the way, and some of the tire guys that have said, listen, we got to be in mechanical. There seems to be a blending from both sides to the middle.
Yeah, it's kind of flip-flopped. I'm sure you've seen it. Everybody's seen it. But from my perspective, historically, I'm a tire guy, right? And so I knew tire guys, and I knew getting into service was super important. But over the last several years, as a result of some of my travels throughout North America, I've ended up seeing now more folks going from the service side into tires. Us tire guys may say that they're crazy, but there's a lot of good reasons to be doing that. And yeah, I've definitely noticed a bit of a shift where we all recognize that service is super important to what we do. And those folks that have a super strong service in their buildings, a little bit of an easier walk into tires, if you will, than it is taking a tire guy and walking them into service, right?
That's what the mechanical guys say. Those tire guys are crazy to get into the mechanical. Yeah, I mean, that is the initial, but we do the Aftermarket Weekly show and the virtual shop tour, and I always ask, I would say 90% of the time when we're looking inside of a shop, I say the words, are you in the tire business? The answers are all over the board. Yeah, a little bit. They've got gorgeous equipment, the latest everything. And I just can't quite in the back of my mind see the investment versus the number of tires they would be selling. But yet, if the customer comes to you and they're loyal, and why would you want them to go anywhere else when you do an inspection on the vehicle and it says, hey, you need tires, and we don't do them? That would really piss off a loyal customer.
So I don't remember the year, forgive me on this, but NHTSA had a study years back And this was kind of a leading premise from years ago with DSP 20 Group. It's a 1-to-1-to-1 ratio, and it speaks to service to tire mix. And the study basically came out and said, hey, for every dollar a customer spends on a tire, they spend $1 on service, and they spend $1 on labor. So from a financial benchmarking standpoint, whether you're in the service world or whether you're in the tire world, it stands to reason that if you are not dabbling in both of them and finding a good, clean mix of business, you're leaving some pretty healthy chunks of change on the table.
I remember having to have 4 tires on my car a while back, and that was a 4-figure deal.
Nothing's getting cheap these days. Nothing at all. Everything's getting more expensive. And the good news is, it seems like our industry is doing pretty well as we've gone through COVID and everything else. We've learned a lot of really good lessons. And yeah, it may be expensive for consumers, but consumers don't recognize that tire guys aren't the richest folks in the world.
Randy, give me one of those lessons.
One of those lessons from COVID, oh man, efficiency's got to be the biggest. We were forced to do a lot of things that were uncomfortable for us to do when life was good and we weren't forced to do it. A lot of us looked at hours, for instance, right? There was the thought that, oh man, we've got this building, we're leasing it. The lease at the end of the month is the same, whether I'm open 31 days or whether I'm open 25 days or 26 days. So I'm going to go ahead and get the absolute most out of my building. And from an efficiency standpoint, things don't always work out that way. You got to look at your models, and you got to look at your consumer behavior and look at your competition and your share of business and all those other things. And I think throughout COVID, we all learned how efficiency could really, really help us be stronger competitors, not only with our consumers, but also in the market as it pertains to our team members and employees.
Did the efficiency cream to the top because we were booked out so far that in order for us to just manage the promise times, the kind of services that we were giving pre-COVID, and we says, oh my God, how am I going to deal with all this business? And not only the current business booked for the day, but the emergencies.
That's a fair approach to what happened, but I think it's more of, from a productivity and efficiency standpoint, we ended up getting a lot more out of. Everyone was more appreciative to, show up as an essential worker, if you will. I was in California at the time, so, there were essential workers. For those folks that, still had jobs and were still in it, they valued them a lot more. And so when it came to still paying the bills, and especially in the space where I exist the most, which is the independent space, we look to those owners to provide a lifeline for the families that do the work in the shop. And so the appreciation that came along with that, and the reality that, everybody had to step up and everybody had to work a little longer hours. You might cut back some days, but, we're a little leaner than we were before. And all of a sudden productivity starts going from 70, 75, 80%. Now you're, hedging up into triple digits, and your efficiencies come right along with it. So it was a matter of necessity, but I think it's a fair thing that's happened to us. And as we have the conversation still now, obviously, as we're not in a situation where it's nearly as rough and tumble as it was. It's still a situation where there's a lot of things that we probably didn't learn or didn't take advantage of throughout the COVID era. We're probably going to need to be thinking about doing now as, we potentially face a little bit of a downturn coming here in the next several months. There could be thoughts of recession, and we've already seen that the consumers are tightening up their belts a little bit. And so what that means is we've got to find a way, in order to be able to keep our top line where we want it. We've got to be able to get a little bit more out of everything that's coming in the door. And, we don't ever talk in our groups about beating people over the head. This is a situation where, we want to make sure that we're getting the most out of everything we can do. And so we're sitting in a room, and the first financial we look at is mix of business. If you are not closer to a 1-to-1-to-1 ratio, 30% tires, 30% parts, and 30% mechanical, then we're going to look for ways to be able to try to figure out what is it in your systems, what is it in your processes that can change the behaviors that will eventually lead to a little healthier line.
Are you a repair shop owner? Do you find yourself struggling with any of the following? Uncertainty about the future and competition. Are you spending too much time managing chaos and struggling with new employees? Do you lack time to invest in learning best practices, or there's no time to spend on effective marketing? How do your finances look? Are you reactive rather than proactive? Do you know where you should be, when to grow, and when to shrink? If any of those situations describe where you are today, well, you are finally in the right place. Repair Shop of Tomorrow is Napa Auto Care's newest endorsed partner. They are helping shops all over the nation run more profitable automotive repair shops, and they help by utilizing proven business best practices, marketing, and coaching to leverage Napa programs to drive quality, car count, sales, and profits. RSOT will look at productivity, efficiencies, effective labor rate, average hours per car, labor profit percent, measure and manage labor, and how you can create net profit. Team up with the coaches to create systems, operations, and procedures using a business flow chart to help you reach your goals. RSOT will help measure and manage the results to help each business succeed. Now, best of all, it's not do-it-yourself. It's all done for you. Their goal is to help service professionals do what they do best, fix cars and build relationships at the counter and in the community. RSOT will take the other minutia off your plate. The Repair Shop of Tomorrow offers a tier-based program to not only generate more business today, but to transform your shop into a top-level shop of tomorrow. RSOT can teach you how to make your shop profitable, and they can teach you how to recruit and how to make more labor dollars for your shop. Interested in Repair Shop of Tomorrow? Well, call 440-545-1230. That's 440-545-1230 for a free 20-minute no-obligation consultation, or contact your servicing Napa Auto Parts store. When you're getting together with your teams and your groups, are you looking at labor rates? You asking the last time? Are you doing some math on labor rates and or costs, since steak now costs 40% more than we used to pay for it per pound?
It's pretty cool in our groups. We facilitate a lot of discussion, and obviously labor rate comes out at some point in every single one of our meetings that we have. And the members now, after years and years of being in it, will probe that question, and they'll find that guy that's in the room that might be at $105 or $110 or forbid $90. They hold him to the fire and they ask him what he's waiting for and what he or she what reasons they have for not doing it, because every single person in the room has at some point been faced with that accountability with the other 19 owners. And it's basically coming down to just go ahead and do it. You can always pull back if you need to, but do it now. Thank me tomorrow.
What are the reasons you're hearing for being 90, 95, 100? What do you hear?
Most of the things that we hear is you can't get away with that around here. It's been the same response for years is, all right, you guys are talking more metro markets, you're talking more urban markets. I'm out in the middle of nowhere. I'm in a small town. I've only got, 15,000 people, 20,000 people. There's no way I can do that. Second to that is probably, I shot my competition 6 months ago and, they were at 100 and, I want to be the value leader. And so to us, though, those two thoughts, they don't necessarily connect when it comes to your bottom line and when it comes to, just making sure that you're responsible to be able to take care of your teams at the same time.
Can't you be the value leader at 125?
You can absolutely be the value leader at 125, 140, 150. I'm very happy for someone to say, man, you're expensive. Yeah, we are. We're going to prove to you why.
You got a great resume. Give us a little idea of what you've done in your life so far.
No, I appreciate that, Carm. I've been pretty lucky. I came in green in my young 20s, a company called Colony Tire on the East Coast, and stepped into a pretty busy retail shop and learned pretty quick that I needed some really strong support systems in order for me to be able to figure this thing out. Because I'm not by any means a tire guy. I'm not by any means a car guy. I am just dedicated to the industry and the independent. So Colony Tire, back in the day, 1 store, 2 stores, 3 stores, 7 stores, 13 stores. They did a good job, and they ended up selling back in the day to Monroe. Left them and ended up going to ATD Tire Pros with the Tire Pros group there, and so was consulting and then director of operations with them for a couple of years when I met Dennis McCarron. He was my intro into MTD 10, formerly DSP 20 group. And so stepped on with DSP and just had a fantastic time meeting brilliant people throughout the industry, throughout North America. Eventually had an opportunity because of the consulting I was doing to step away and go work for a super regional in California. Big brand tire, did a good job there. Got them to the point that they were ready to get out. The numbers were good at that point. They got healthy X, and they sold to a private equity. And so I knew it was time for me to get back into the independent again. And so here I am back with MTD 10 Training Education Network and working directly with the independent, which is what I think my career was meant to have me do.
Great storyline. I like that. Systems, communications, accountability, processes, procedures, behaviors. These are kind of like all the things you guys cover when you get together, talk, consult. Can we pick a couple of these and drill down?
So system, process, and behavior. In our groups, it's a lot of fun because, the members, the owners, they report their financials on a monthly basis. And we've got reporting that goes out from that. And that's all good and well. We can look and compare and, we can see who's doing what. And we can probably pretty well know just looking at the numbers who's not doing what. But the real gusto comes in the meetings when you actually sit down and you're held to task with what your approach is to the business, what things you have put in place since the last meeting. We all have action lists that we walk away with every meeting. What are those wildly important things that you've put in place, since the last time we met?
Did you say wild? And sometimes those are really BHAG stretches, right? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, absolutely. Stretch goals for everybody is important, but Carm, it all starts with something that I continue to get frustrated with year over year, which is the lack of annual financial planning that I see as being a systematic issue that we have. It's our due north. And without a due north, there's really just no chance that you're going to be able to hit any of those stretches that maybe we're talking about. And so part of our mission as facilitators and as consultants is to help folks put together the system that they can eventually walk through the processes to be able to change behaviors along the way, because that's what it all comes down to. It all eventually chases down to behaviors, and chances are, if you don't have the behaviors that you want and you've tried to get them year over year, it's a result of a poorly put together system and or a series of processes that just aren't supporting what everybody needs in their toolbox to be able to get their job done.
Let me ask you a question about the behavior piece and the accountability thing. Do many of the clients that you have that are part of your 20 groups, do they look at that accountability from each other that help to help them?
Yeah, for sure. That's the real gold that happens within the 20 group is, you've got 19 other owners that you're peer-to-peer on, right? You are peer-to-peer accountability, and some relationships obviously within the group are stronger than others. There's a lot of activity that happens outside of the meetings where we've got owners that are, taking trips, taking vacations together, visiting each other's shops, doing things in order to be able to kind of shorten the learning curve in the meantime. But yeah, in the group, it's a lot of fun when we have our meetings because that accountability is something where we just let them go. And we hold the conversations together so nothing gets out of control, and we make sure that everybody can agree to disagree. But at the end of the day, it's all about making each other better, and it's all about making sure that the independent is as strong as they can be.
To me, that's one of the secrets of the groups in how they blend and interact and develop friendships. And to your point, I've just known so many that have such a great bond and vacation together, and still, if you will, let me just use a little vernacular here, play grab ass with themselves on their own little chat groups to be sure that, hey, did you get this done? We talked about it the other day. And there's nothing like someone pushing you because the man in the mirror may not.
We all get to know each other pretty well, and some folks are a little harder on others than others. But at the end of the day, it's not rare for a member to say, "What the hell are you thinking? Like, what is taking you so long to get this done? Why haven't you picked up the phone? Why haven't you called? Why haven't you called Randy? Why haven't you called any of the other members? You're not on an island, and that island is something that if you're on it." You don't necessarily recognize how small it is. You may have a highly functional island, but you don't know how other islands operate unless you actually get on the boat and have a good time.
That's a great metaphor. Don't be on your own island. Even though you think you could afford it, you can't. You said something about financial planning. Part of the Aftermarket Radio Network, Hunt Demarest CPA, is doing an episode, and I believe it'll be out probably as people are hearing our voice, called Tax Planning. And as any accounting firm knows, and any savvy businessman knows, that in July you have to start tax planning, especially if you're going to purchase and buy or acquire or grow. How does the tax man handle some of the decisions that you're ready to make for the rest of the year? So great point you brought up.
Yeah, the financial piece for us is actually came years ago from Norm Gaither. It's a name that's pretty well known throughout the industry. Pretty smart bean counter in his own right. Those benchmarks that he put forth years ago are the structure to what we use today. Obviously, it's changed. The average retail price of a tire is, no longer $120. And so with it, everything below the line changes at the same time. So we change the financials and we make sure we keep up to date with what's going on. But it's rooted in that bean counter mentality. I'm glad you brought it up.
Norm Gaither, I read his articles. He used to write for magazines. This is T-minus maybe 25 years ago or even longer. And I always wanted to meet Norm, but never did. And then when I bumped into Dennis and I realized the connectivity that Dennis had with Norm, it was kind of like old home week for me. And Dennis McCarron's been on the show before. And just so that you understand, Randy took over from Dennis. Am I right?
Dennis brought me in initially, and there have been two other folks that have run the 20 group since I've been gone. Don't forget my 2-year hiatus where I was out on the left coast in California.
All right. Well, I still want to give a shout out to Dennis because I met him a few years ago. He brought some great stuff to the podcast. What's your philosophy on creating good processes? At least documenting them?
Certainly, documentation is important, but you got a long way to go before you get to documentation. The George Foreman version of processes just doesn't work, especially for the independent. And so it all has roots back in systems, in my opinion. When you recognize the strengths and the weaknesses of your systems and you collaborate with the folks that have the greater share of accountability within those systems, whether it's the customer service system or the vehicle service system, or believe it or not, just the communication and accountability system. That, in my mind, that's a whole nother system that's there. And, processes and procedures are kind of they're the transport vehicle. They're the blood, right? They're the blood of the body, where the systems are the bones. The process is the blood. It transports everything to the muscles, which are your behaviors. And so, when it comes to processes, you've got to have some systematic approach to each one of your departments. Like I said, customer service, vehicle service, marketing, financial reporting, and you trickle it down, right? What's the biggest bang for your buck in each one of those departments? You can improve your bottom line on what's your biggest headache, what's your biggest opportunity. And then you start diving into the processes. But the processes really, Carm, they come from involvement of folks that are in doing the work. They're the folks that really need to be able to have a fine hand in designing in putting forth what people want. And that's probably where a lot of folks go wrong is top-down management. You can involve your team and you can collaborate without having a top-down. You can always reserve the right to veto, but putting in the work and putting in the time to build your processes with your team so that everybody's on board, you get buy-in, and then eventually, you've got a system of accountability that's inherent in involving them, then you're really off and running.
I love what you said about the right to veto. That almost helps our listener realize that they don't have to do it themselves. Literally, they don't have to be the center of that wheel. They don't have to be the conductor of the orchestra. They just need to say, hey, team, let's get this thing done. I want to be involved in kind of every 8 or 9 steps of the way here, Let me read it over. I'll bring you some comments, some ideas. Yeah, I got the right to veto. I own the business, but this is your business to help. I need help to run it.
You start with that initial annual planning, and let's say you want to grow, $5 gross profit per vehicle. You go to your managers and you pull in your service manager and you say, y'all, we need $5 more per vehicle. I need your help in order to be able to figure out how to do this. Let's brainstorm a big list, put it together, and then let's prioritize that list and let's, see what's going to have the biggest impact. And then, okay, now that we know what's going to have the biggest impact, how do we actually do that? How do we make sure that these ideas you guys are having are in there? Do we have the right tools in place? Is our point of sale able to do this? Do we have the right reporting ability to be able to do this? Do we have calls set up so that we're accountable on a regular basis to make sure that the things that we're trying are actually working? And so you sit down, you have a powwow call that might last 15 minutes that's built on a particular goal that your team came up with. What did you try last week? What worked? What didn't work? Stick right to the task. Make sure that you don't bring any of the chaos of commerce into it. You never pick up the phone. You never miss the call. You never step away. You have your little 15 minutes. You hit that one little goal and you figure out what you're going to do for next week. And then you rinse and repeat. You do it again.
I love it. You said the word openness. Obviously, you must preach the fact that the financial statements are open to your leadership team, and they'll never help you carry the log up the hill if they don't know how heavy it is.
100% transparency is thoroughly important, especially when you talk about a business that's like ours. We have a very short sales cycle, right, compared to a lot of others, right? Our sales cycle lasts minutes, half hour, right, for an oil change, maybe 45 minutes to an hour, or if we're doing bigger jobs, the sales cycle might last, a half a day or a day, maybe a couple of days at most. When you're in a short sales cycle like this, your folks, in my opinion, need to be rewarded on that sales cycle, meaning pretty high commission, right? When you're going at that pace and moving at a pace that's that high, a really high commission helps to really get people to buy into the pace with which we have to do business in order to be able to get turns on our bays. And so when you think about just making sure that there's openness to financials, if you're not open with the financials and you don't have supporting reporting scoreboards, right, that feed back up into that wildly important goal, those big annual goals that you're working on, they're traveling through the dark without night goggles. And that's no fun for anybody.
Yeah, Randy, thank you for bringing this up. We've done shows called Where the Money Goes, and it was an opportunity for the owner to basically say, hey, here's my P&L. And it may not necessarily be in the really big numbers, but if you will, you take the return on sales based on a $100 sale, and my payroll costs $20, and it's not hard to bring it down to a small digestible form. But so many people think, oh, you had a $100 sale, the owner gets $100. Now, wait a minute. You are walking away with money for your family and your benefits and your bonuses, and we're paying the heat and the light and the mortgage and all that stuff. But still in all, as much as people know that there's costs associated with every sale, they think the owner makes so much more than they currently make. It's a great philosophy to know that you guys are teaching that openness and helping people understand the financials.
Yeah, it used to be $3 to $4 was about average for the independent on the 100 that came in top line that the owner might keep, and these days it's more like 5 to 7 on average, which is still a lot of work for very little return. And so, we benchmark 15% as being a good net down on that $100.
Yeah, that's good. And I know there's a whole lot of coaches and shop owners that are striving for 20. And I look at that and I say, when you think of the years they lost money, and there's nothing wrong with trying to make it up, because all of that sweat equity and all the money invested in the time invested in the business, there's nothing wrong with that. When I ever did this exercise back in the day, I would always tell people that net profit is just so darn important, because I know you all would love a raise someday. We need to buy equipment. We have to pay debt service. All of that stuff comes from after all the bills are paid, and there's this little pile of money at the end, and then it's my job to figure out where it all has to go so that we can sustain ourselves for another day, another month, another year.
Yeah, it's an interesting scenario once folks actually have a realization of where the money actually goes, and that while some folks may have a second P&L, that everybody's not robbing from everybody in the business, that there's some significant costs that come along with what we're doing. And it's not rare, Carm, that we sit in a room and we get a big long list. Man, I wish I woulda. Right, man, I wish I would have 2 years ago, right? All those folks that were losing money, over the past, few years, and now all of a sudden they recognize that although it takes time, that it really wasn't as difficult as it may seem. Once you're in a situation where you're only 1% to 3% net profit, life is hard, man. Right? You're having a hard time paying bills. You're worrying about paying people's paychecks, all those things. You get in the 4 to 5 to 6% net range, and things start to get a little easier. You start to enjoy business a little better. Things are a little more fun. You can finally start thinking about maybe working on instead of in the business, although most people still don't at that point. You get to that 7 to 10, it's that net wall. You can start to look over that wall. Once you get to 9, 10, 11%, things are really fun, and you're able to actually really have a good time and reinvest back in the business. And now you've recognized that it could have been this way if you would have just made a few changes along the way.
Scoreboarding and coaching and rewarding, cover a little bit of the importance of that.
I don't know that there's anything more important to the processes and the systems when it comes to accountability than having good, clean scoreboards. In any situation, we try to make sure the work that's being done and the information that's being reported, whether up or down, and I'm a big proponent of reporting up. So folks understand the numbers. They have to mind the numbers. They have to work with them. They have to put their hands on them, right? Really when it comes to getting things done, the scoreboard has to be within everybody's control. We're all really good at taking the canned reports that come out of our point of sale systems and figuring out how to throw them at everybody and saying, do this, do that, moving everybody's cheese every couple of weeks, every couple of months, whatever it is. But one thing I think that's really important is that we actually drill that down, right? We drill those scoreboards down into whatever it is you're working on in the moment, and you isolate, right? You want to isolate the process, and you want to isolate the behaviors that support that process in order for you to have the greatest chance of getting that done. So having a scoreboard that's there every single day for folks that have, in my opinion, 75% or greater influence on reporting. A tire oil change technician probably necessarily doesn't need to know on a daily basis how many air filters were sold. They probably need to know something more like how many quality inspections were done on the number of cars that I had come through my bay. That's a meaningful scoreboard for somebody rather than how much did we sell, right? Because an oil change tire tech doesn't really have control over the sales side of things. They have control over the inspection and the execution, right, of that. So what are we reporting on, and how do we report it, and what's the frequency with which we do it?
So individualistic targeting, is that what you're saying?
Absolutely.
So there's got to be a certain degree or level of data that you want to come upstairs and flow, because if someone is doing a particular job, no matter what it is in the company, say I'm in charge of selling tires, at least I got a little bit of a personal scorecard that the computer knows, the SMS knows, maybe I want to make sure that the SMS got me right, so I'm going to keep my own scorecard.
Technology's gotten in the way in some instances. It used to be back in the day we would all put it on paper, right? And if you had spiffs that were going on or whatever it was, that mechanic or technician or lube tech, whatever, would make sure that they're getting paid on that, and they've got them all written down on a piece of paper. Well, now we've just got to harness the technology that's in the shops and give people the autonomy to use the system, figure out how, which reports need to be available to them, and then have them roll something up in a fashion that brings together teamwork. They can see the competition between each other. They can see what's possible where they are, in the group, and hopefully then, you can engender a little bit of competition to be able to, work towards the goals that you're working on at the moment, right? I
so appreciate you coming on board, Randy, and would you promise to come back and let's do part 2?
Absolutely, Carm. It's been a pleasure. It's a lot of fun to talk to you, not only here on the cast, but offline as well. And very much appreciate what you're doing for the industry in any way that I can support it and we can support it. More than happy to do it.
I think you dropped a whole lot of great motivation, knowledge bombs. Wow, that's a great idea bomb. No doubt. We appreciate it. Randy O'Connor, Executive Director of Modern Tire Dealer Training and Educator Network. Come back, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Look forward to it. Can't wait.
Thanks for being on board to listen and learn from the premier automotive aftermarket podcast. Until next time.